Hey folks, I hope you're hanging in there. Having good crosshair placement is the key to improving as a beginner, and in this video I want to talk about a simple technique you can incorporate into your standard edge-locked crosshair placement, which will help you more successfully dry peek a common angle with no utility. It's something many of you might do naturally, and even if you do, thinking about when and why to do it will definitely pay off and help to improve your gameplay. I call this technique baby peeks because it's a lot of fun to say baby peeks, and I didn't really find any other common names for it. Like I said before, baby peeks come most in handy when you're in the process of moving forward and clearing angles with no utility. You might hear peeking with no utility referred to as dry peeking, and a lot of people will have a difficult time dry peeking into an enemy who's already holding your angle. A baby peek is quite simply just pre-aiming the angle you're going to peek, but there are nuances to it which are important to your success when doing it. So to show you what a baby peek looks like, we usually start out with our standard edge-locked crosshair placement. Then we notice, hey, I'm about to peek this common angle where there's a good chance for the enemy to be positioned. So we briefly pause and move our crosshair to pre-aim that common angle. This allows you to then make a short, sharp peek where your crosshair will often appear right on the enemy's head. It sounds simple and obvious, but keeping this in mind and practicing it will lead to a lot more success when dry peeking, and the better you get at predicting where to pre-aim, the more success you'll have. In other words, when you're pushing forwards and clearing off angles or uncommon angles, use edge-locked crosshair placement to be most ready for wherever the enemy might be positioned. When you're just about to peek a common angle, pre-aim and baby peek it. There are some things you should try to avoid when doing this. For example, you don't want to pre-aim an angle which is past an angle you haven't cleared yet. You're really looking for a very short and sharp peek. Remember, the main goal of this, as with standard crosshair placement, is to reduce the amount we have to move our crosshair to ensure the most consistent, reliable, and fastest shot possible. You also generally don't want to over-peek or wide swing the angle you're pre-aiming. You really just want to peek out just enough to clear that one angle. There is a time and a place for wide swinging, even when dry peeking. For example, you know the enemy might have an operator, but that's a topic for another video. By pre-aiming the angle like this, we're giving ourselves the shortest possible time between peeking, stopping, and shooting, which not only gives the enemy less time to react, but also allows us to make good use of Peeker's advantage. Riot is rightfully doing what they can to mitigate Peeker's advantage, but it's worth mentioning that even without Peeker's advantage, this will oftentimes be the best method of dry peeking a common angle whenever you're in a situation where you absolutely have to. Let's look at the same scenario I went through in my intro to crosshair placement guide, where we're pushing out of hookah into B short. We start things off with our standard edge-locked crosshair placement. As we're pushing forward, we notice we're about to peek boxes, which is a common spot for enemies to hold from. So we pause, reposition our crosshair to pre-aim boxes, and then peek while pre-aimed and get the easy shot on the enemy. Next, we switch back to our standard crosshair placement as we clear these off angles. And then once again, we know that the entrance to B short here is a common spot to hold, so we pre-aim that and again get the easy shot off. By pre-aiming common angles like this, rather than exclusively using edge-locked crosshair placement, we're able to pick and choose where we can safely remove the element of reaction from our peeks. With traditional crosshair placement, first we have to see the enemy, then react by stopping our movement and adjusting our aim. With baby peeks, we skip the reactionary part of that process and simply take a safe gamble that the enemy will be there. If they're there, we get the shot, and if not, we're playing it safe and not exposing ourselves to any additional angles. The hard counters to baby peeks are off angles. The hard counter to this hard counter is traditional edge-locked crosshair placement. You can avoid off angles by clearing as much of the area as you can with edge-locked placement before committing to the baby peek. If you're in an area of the map where it's too difficult to do that, then baby peeking might not be the best option. However, I haven't found too many scenarios where that ends up being the case. Another quick thing I wanted to mention is that this concept of knowing when to make these tiny little pre-aims is still beneficial when you're moving quickly. For example, if you're entry fragging with a flash or making a quick rotation and watching out for lurkers trying to cut you off. The same principle applies, you just have to do it a little bit more quickly and without pausing. When you're approaching a common angle, you switch from edge-lock crosshair placement to pre-aiming, and you'll be ready to stop and shoot if an enemy happens to be there. Another note on that, one of the biggest strengths of baby peeking is the element of surprise, so you really shouldn't be full speed stomping around the map, except for situations where it makes sense to do so. To practice this, jumping into a custom game and practicing baby peeking common angles is really the best way to build some muscle memory and improve without any pressure. That being said, it's still really great to practice during a game, and really just keeping it in mind will lead to a lot of easy and pretty dirty looking frags. Thanks for sticking with me, folks. I hope you found this helpful. Definitely let me know if you have any topics you want me to cover. Thanks so much for all the support thus far, and as always, have fun and enjoy the game.